So my dad was like grab something for anyone else. There's the balloons again. The balloons, Mr. Balloon Hands.
Mr. Balloon's hands.
Dude, what's so crazy about this is I've been listening to like other podcasts, and we are not the only ones where someone's like stopped and be like, holy shit, why did balloons just come across your avatar? Like, this is sweeping the nation by storm. Benny, I was just explaining to JP how we ended up being the richest guys in the world, aka having 2 different gift cards to Buffalo Wild Wings, totaling $125. So I threw a $25 gift card on top of a Christmas shopping spree, and my dad was like, who's that for? And I was like, me and Benny.
What did you want to know, Dad?
And he was just like, nice, and which is the proper response. Benny had a $100 gift card it was one of those gift cards that you can use to like 10 different places.
And 10 the most different types of places.
But it was like $100. So the intention was probably that you would use them at 10 different places, not at one.
Yeah, I don't think that world exists that I could buy 10 different things for $10.
Yeah, like the other ones were like Cheesecake Factory was on there. I think Regal Cinemas was on there.
Macy's,
you get like a large
Sephora.
soda.
Yeah, a large soda,
soda and 1 movie ticket for $100.
Yeah,
or 40 buffalo wings.
We did throw down, and super secret producer Skinder was like ordering top shelf Jameson, which is the only way. We walked from Reser Stadium after Oregon State's crushing, heartbreaking 22-20 loss to UW, which we'll get into on this 117th episode of the Belligerent Beavs Podcast. Welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. We don't sound nearly as sad as we should right now because we're reliving moments from a fun weekend. But me, Benny, and super secret producer Skinder walked to like 2.5 miles from Reser to B-Dubs on 9th, which was by where we're staying. No one has cell service. Benny's phone is dead. I think my phone is just whatever. You're not going to get a Lyft. You're not going to get an Uber. So we just kept walking. And then we got to B-Dubs, and I was in my feelings leaving Reser for the last time after a Pac-12 game as we know it. Then we get to Buffalo Wild Wings. We order. The server and bartender upsells a Skinder on like, oh, you want a shot of Jameson?
It was too easy.
How about like Jameson Blue Cask Edition? And I'm like, none of those words. That's not a thing. But anyway, I guess the B-Dubs in Corvallis stocks like Jameson Reserve or some shit. So then that comes. I started crying. And then like Formula One in Vegas is marquee. I cried twice. I cried harder at the B-Dubs. And honestly, if you haven't cried in the Buffalo Wild Wings on 9th after a heartbreaking loss, have you even Corvallis? I say no. I say you haven't. I cried because I lived. And like Skins turned around and looked at my face and was just like, whoa. And Benny, who had just gotten done being like, listing the 117 reasons why he's so sad, was like, are you crying? And I was like, yes. And our meal was comped because we had all those gift cards. So thank God.
Wait, comped by B-Dubs?
Comped by the gift cards.
Kind of. Because Skins, I had my wallet out and Skins said something and I was like, you got this? Because there was like an extra part of the bill. I think he was pulling his wallet out in the act of, I'm going to act like I'm going to look like I'm going to pay.
But I know you guys have $125 in gift cards.
Well,
Yeah.
less. It was like 98 at that point because we went to the B-Dubs first thing when we arrived on Friday.
And I was being basic and ordering White Claws and
I didn't
not
cry. I didn't cry.
fancy Jameson shots.
I was ordering Bud Light,
Yeah.
but like the big ones.
Oh, nice.
They're like,
Yeah.
"Do you want a big
White
one or
Claw,
a regular one?" I
Bud
was like, "I
Light,
need a big
Jameson Blue Plus Cask
Jameson
5-year edition.
one." Jameson Blue Plus at the B-Dubs on 9th. Oh my God, we have a lot to get into. Oh my God, Beaver Nation, Beaver fam, thank you for tuning in to this melancholic episode of the Belligerent Beavs Podcast. It's not all melancholy though. We've got some positive things to talk about, which we will eventually. But if you're listening to this, then by now you already know. You probably watched it. You may have been there. Oregon State lost to the University of Washington Fuskies 22-20. A cold and rainy day in the Paris of the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, to say the least.
That is not good. It's not fun. It's not lovely. It doesn't fill us up. But we are here, and you are here with us. And if you're not here, then you don't hear what I'm saying, so it doesn't matter. And that fills us up. Seeing the two beautiful faces looking back at me on my Zoom, that of JP Bertram in Portland and Benjamin Lawrence Sebastian Wehage, back in Tacoma safely. Benny and I had a great Sunday brunch in Portland.
Where'd you go?
We went to that place with in that spot that had that burger with those people who we like.
That burger
Sherry's.
was so good.
Sherry's.
It was that burger was very
Sherry's
good.
on 9th in Corvallis.
Classic. A classic.
And we're so happy to have you as listeners on this 117th episode of the Belligerent Beavs Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everyone who said what's up to us or introduced themselves to us, came and found us on either on the terrace, some of the tailgates before. We were roaming around for a while. It was not the result we wanted, but ultimately, as I was flying back to Minneapolis today, a lot of happy thoughts and a lot of pleasant reminders of why I love being a Beaver fan and why I love being on this show. And we can't thank our listeners enough for that, for giving us this platform. The season's not over, so I don't want the tone of this episode to sound like it is. JP is literally wearing a "We Ain't Done Yet" hoodie. A Belligerent Beavs "We Ain't Done Yet" hoodie.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my Beavs and Beers and Buckets shirt. We're going to do all three of those things tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing a shirt that looks like the sky because the sky's not falling.
Or it looks like the cotton candy that the mini buffet was eating at Oregon State's impressive and immaculate 3-0 win over the Portland Pilots at Merlo Field on Sunday night, baby.
I'm so glad I didn't let him finish that thing. Oh, my God.
That's how you spin, kids.
Yes.
It's a celebration, bitches. All right.
So that was it for the celebration.
And that's it for episode 117 of the Belligerent Beavs Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my God, you guys. We have our notes, we have our outline, we have our stuff. I think maybe we should probably just get into the Reagan Beer segment, as we do every episode. If this is your first time here, thank you. Welcome. We cheers. We have a beer or a vice of choice to celebrate Beaver fanhood with each other with. And I think we all got a lot we want to tee off on. So I think probably the best course of action here is to get into this beer segment. Toast to the Beaver fam and anyone else we want to toast to, and then just kind of dive head in. How does that sound?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Sounds
All
good.
right. I can go first because I've got a quick one. I think JP's might be quick too, because as I stayed in JP's house last night, I can attest to the slim pickings of his of his beer selection.
Yeah, what
after
happened?
You had a bunch of friends over, and your friends are savages, and that's what happens. I got back to Minneapolis at about 6 p.m. Central Time today, and at 6:05 p.m. Central Time, I was in a lift on my way downtown to the Timberwolves Knicks game, and I got home about 10 minutes before recording because NBA refs are assholes and make every fourth quarter take 4 hours. The game was on pace to end like under 2 hours total. Anyway, that's not why you're here. No one cares, but still, ban refs. But so I came home. I have some other vices in the house, as I always do, but the only beers in the fridge are a couple of hams left. Returning listeners will know I am a hamsman. My favorite kind of shitty beer, and so it's the same kind of Christmassy but not Christmassy can, brewed in the land of the sky blue waters. Hams beer.
Let's go.
Let's
Terry
go.
Hamsman.
Terry Hamsman. Terrace Hamsman. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking tonight. JP, what about you?
Well, I'll keep it basic as well. We restocked on our standard
There you go.
ecliptic
There you
starburst,
go.
and then also a little bit of a bittersweet because starburst, well, ecliptic as we know it, no longer exists.
Oh shit.
They were sold, and
To the Big Ten?
probably.
They're
Those
just taking everything.
Fucking fucks.
Those blood-sucking fuckers.
Yeah.
Nothing is sacred.
So they
Could
were
we
sold...
get acquired by the Big Ten? Could that happen?
No, I don't. I would turn them down.
All right, what if we didn't have, like, what if we just woke up someday and just some guy was like, okay, we own your podcast now. We're an LLC, right?
We are. It was renewed.
Does that mean I didn't major in business at Oregon State?
Oh,
So, but like, what could someone just be like, we've acquired you? Probably
Well,
not. But
they'd have to talk to the principal
Right.
owners, which is us
Right.
three.
I would
So
say
it'd be-
no.
It'd be shocking if there was more than one of us who had no idea that that had occurred.
well, the offer that
Let
I
alone
heard
all of
was that
us.
we get to replace Oregon in the Big Ten, and then they get to see how it feels
All
to be
right.
in the Pac. And Wazoo replaces UW. So I say yes to that arrangement.
Wait, are you saying we like Oregon State or we like us three?
Like Oregon's athletic department is just banished to the Belligerent Beavs podcast, and
Yeah.
Oregon State gets their spot in the Big Ten.
Or we get their
Sure.
spot and they're in the pack with Oregon State.
And we compete on the field.
So the
Yeah.
Belligerent Beavs against like Michigan.
I don't think any of us have any eligibility left.
I do.
Well,
That would be a problem.
Actually,
I don't think that's how it works.
I used up my.
I
used up my 6
I
years.
know where your mind went, and I don't think that's how it works. Anyway, I'm sorry for hijacking.
Not even as a grad-
JP's.
Not even a grad transfer.
We would have to be enrolled in grad schools, which we can do.
We can
You're
create our own
kind
grad
of.
school and then enroll.
No,
You were teaching at a different
I
grad
was
school.
teaching. That's true. That's
I
also
watched
scary.
Great Courses Plus on Amazon
Right.
Prime TV.
Wow.
I binged The Chair on Netflix in one sitting. That's about teaching
I've not
universities.
seen.
So I have not
might-
heard of any
you
of
might
these
like it.
programs.
The Chair is actually pretty good. It was a little triggering for me, but now that I haven't worked in higher ed for 8 weeks, it might be a good time to revisit it. Anyway, JP, Ecliptic.
Ecliptic,
Starburst.
they shut down the tap room. They've sold supposedly they claim that you will still be able to find Starburst and some of the other favorites in restaurants and stores. But you know how that always goes when something gets
Yeah.
acquired. That's one of those empty promises. Like, can you promise that you'll still make our beers and keep the name alive? And they're like, yeah, you got it. And then as soon as they get the recipe, they swap out all the quality ingredients for some of the bulk mass-produced stuff, and then eventually phase it out because it sucks because they sabotaged it. But
Or when a conference commissioner says, my allegiance is to our 12-member institutions, and then my allegiance is to our 10 remaining member institutions.
we
And
have
then
4
my
board
allegiance
members.
is to our remaining 9 institutions, and then my allegiance is to our remaining 4 institutions, and then Fuck those assholes. I don't care. I don't work for them anymore.
Yeah. Remember when I said 10? I meant the other 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, R.I.P. Ecliptic. Really sad.
Ecliptic.
I
Fuck.
know. Way
God
to bring
damn
the
it.
mood up, JP.
Way to bring the mood up, JP, but that's okay. We need to shed light all things good and bad.
Yeah.
We can't
Work through our feelings. Let's do it live.
We can't be a shelter or an echo chamber from the world. So anyway, Benny, you look bright-eyed and flat-tailed.
Yeah, I think shout out to them.
Yeah.
If you've listened for any length of time, you probably know that I don't drink a whole lot. That was not the case this weekend, as Terry alluded to with the White Claws.
You also didn't drink like someone who.
Wait, you alluded to the White Claws.
Benny,
Benny
was outpacing me.
I did
like,
allude to the White Claws.
Benny was drinking like someone who houses a case of Coors a day on the Terrace Gang. Yeah. I like went and I was so cold and like my beer was sloshing around because my hands couldn't stop shaking because of how cold it was.
It was true.
And I was just like taking my time with it, whatever. And then Benny was just like, done.
Well, I had my hand warmers in my pocket, so I was trying to drink it as quick as I could. So needless to say, that
you haven't lost your touch, which is good to know, I guess.
Yeah. That on top of just being outside in that weather for that length of time, because we were outside since we left the Peacock, really, which was at what 11 in the morning, until 8:39 at night. So, anyways, that's a long way of saying that I am drinking water and trying to get my hydration back up to where it was before I went to Corvallis, which is hard.
Yeah,
impossible.
Yeah, feels that way.
Should just let your skin absorb all the water.
How was your drive back on Sunday evening?
Dude, honestly, I probably should have pulled off to the side of the road and taken a nap. I was so tired by the time I got home.
Did you not see the couch at the Portland establishment that we were lunching? Benny, you could have taken a nap on the couch. I'm sure everyone there would have been okay with that.
I'm sure they would have.
In the middle of Starbucks, I'm talking about. You knuckleheads.
I was very, very tired when I got home last night.
Well,
I made going to bed early. All right.
We rallied, man, and we made it out to Merlot Field. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but I was impressed we did that, Terry. We aren't young chaps like we used to be, but we're
not.
We made it happen.
Even in a miniature, accelerated, very short tailgate at Merlot.
Oh yeah, you were like, you're already done with your beer. Yeah. I looked at yours. It was
and
like
by tailgate, I meant we parked the car, asked, "Can we drink beer on this campus?" Who cares? And then JP drank an IPA in like 8 seconds.
Terry was the like whole vibe of the weekend was Terry just getting his mind blown by how fast his friends were drinking beer in front of him.
Yeah, well,
I kind
of had to. I had to, though, because in the back seat of the car, I didn't want the mini bebe to come out and stand outside. There was like a lot of car traffic. We were like off in this like unlit area off of UP campus.
Beer in the bushes.
Yeah, but I'm like, I don't want him to come out here, but I gave him a little tailgating beverage that it was a leftover Starry from Reeser that we brought home. And so he's in the back seat. We're outside the car. And I just look inside, I pop my head in, and he's just guzzling the Starry, like just absolutely slamming it. I'm like, okay, I need to finish this up so I can take that from him and tell him we got to go so he doesn't drink the whole thing before we even get out of the car. Because it was like full still. Pretty sure it was his sister's, but you know, you snooze, you lose.
That's some Big Brother shit right there.
Yeah.
That's true.
He had the taste for sugar last night for sure. That was not the last excessively sugary treat that he got to enjoy.
Not even close.
But with that, we should raise our beverages, our drinks, our vices filled with sugar or not. And just toast to the Beaver fam, everyone who made it to Reeser, everyone who is loud, everyone who is proud, everyone who watched and made this the 2023 season, the 6-game slate at Reeser, one for the memory books. Another 5-1 slate. We all wish it could have been 6, and we got some more work to do. But God damn it, I love that stadium. I love that town. Shouts to all of the Beaver Athletic Operations team who make that an incredible place and a very special place, and only making it better year by year. But yeah, y'all are the best. I love you in victory and defeat. Sláinte to the Beaver fam.
Chop 'em.
And that phrase, chop 'em, one that you cannot spell without hope. Whether you're finishing incredible, iconic program building win or coming up short and losing by 2 points in a rainstorm. On either of those occasions, you can't spell it without hope. And it is important to remember that. But the final score from Reeser on a rain-soaked Saturday evening is the University of Washington Huskies 22 and your Oregon State Beavers 20. I think what I would like to sort of start here with this is we knew the rain and the elements were going to be a factor. I think both quarterbacks probably would have played better had the rain even just been a little less relent or a little bit more, or a little bit less relenting. Had the rain been less crazy.
Yeah.
One of those. I looked at Ben after we tied the score 7-7, and it was just miserable at that point. I was like, I think we're good enough to beat them on a sunny day. Because everyone's like, this is going to be amazing. And it's like, we have to play in it too. But we got the defensive performance we needed. Had you told me before the game, Washington scores 22, I'd be like, we probably win.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to put this on the offense. The game script was crazy. A lot of things got flipped. Got to give credit to Washington's defense. But I think I want to start sort of with our defensive performance. I don't think Penix necessarily lost the Heisman. It's because they won. And if he has a crazy Apple Cup and another crazy Pac-12 championship game, I think he probably is your Heisman winner. If Washington goes undefeated, whatever, I don't care. But the defense was sensational. So just with thinking of the elements being what maybe we wanted before the game started, and with just how well the defense played and keeping Penix off the field in that second half especially, and not allowing another point after halftime, sort of what are just like your guys' main takeaways now that we've been able to reflect for a little longer than 48 hours since the final whistle, knowing how close we were and how ultimately how we came up short, but that we did do a lot of things in the formula necessary to come away with a win. Just sort of where are your guys' mindset?
For me, I think when it comes to the actual physical action of the game, Oregon State dominated in the areas that we talked about last week of where they needed to dominate, and that was limiting Penix and being able to run the ball. They were able to do both things, and Oregon State actually, they led in total yards, but they also led in both rushing and passing yards. And I think when you look back on it, the area where this game was lost was the things that are going to drive the coaches absolutely up the walls. And that was untimely penalties, specifically the one that was holding on the 2-yard line. The third down conversion, I think Oregon State was like 3 for 15 or
3 for 12.
3 for 12.
Yeah.
And we were constantly starting in second and 13, second and 15. So there, and then the turnover battle, Oregon State was plus 10 going into the game. Washington was -2. I think that was probably a facet of the game that we didn't talk a whole lot about because Oregon State seemed like they were going to have an advantage in that regard. And if you look at Oregon State's only turnover that they got they turned the ball over 2 plays later
Yeah.
in in the red zone. So the fact that we did all of that against the number 5 team in the country and only lost by 2, and really we're setting ourselves up into a really good position to win the game on that last drive.
Right.
I mean, that is why it was so frustrating. You did just about everything you could to shoot yourself in the foot, and you're still in the game with a team that is 50-50 chance of playing in the college football playoffs. Certainly
Higher
has,
now.
yeah, and a team that was rightfully or wrongfully, sort of felt from an Oregon State perspective to have been one of the schools that caused the whole demise of the Pac-12. Like, that's why it's so frustrating, because Oregon State should have beaten Washington based on the actual physical play of the ball.
Yeah. I'll add the clock into that too. We beat them in time of possession 37 and a half to 22 and a half.
Yeah.
And that's what you had everything that
I don't
wanted.
think Smith has ever lost a game with that type of clock control.
No.
I'd have to look that up, so don't quote me on that, Beaver fan. But even like I said, if you said before the game Washington scores 22, I'd say we win. If you had just shown me the time of possession before with no other context, I'm like, how do we lose this?
Mm-hmm.
How can we that's what we're this team is predicated on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so definitely frustrating, especially bringing up that was an incredible play by Oladapo.
Yes.
The one turnover we got to catch Dylan Johnson, force that fumble. That's why Oladapo is maybe the best NFL draft prospect on this defense, maybe on this entire team. We'll get back to that more over the course of draft season, but that's a play. That's the reason why there are scouts salivating over that guy right now. But yeah, JP, what are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I'm glad we talked about Katan's punched out forced fumble, and the thing that I realized as soon as it occurred was most defensive players, when you're catching a guy from behind short of the goal line, you may try for the punch out, you rarely succeed, and most guys know that, so they don't even attempt it. They just try to save the touchdown, force a couple more plays, get the tackle. And it was very clear that Oladapo was aiming for the ball. That was his ultimate goal. The physical attributes, mental attributes required in order to pull that off in the way that he did, it was phenomenal. When it comes to the defense, they held their own in the second half for sure. I think by that point too, though, the rain had just become so relentless that both coaches were trying to adjust on the fly offensively. There had to have been some angle, and they were going to look for it to win that game. And we were able to not break off of any of those halftime adjustments. Obviously, not giving up any points in the second half. So the part of it that I thought was interesting was I was expecting with the rain, I didn't think that Washington was going to go away from throwing the ball, and they didn't. But I thought it would be one of those games where Penix had to make a lot of decisions behind the line, and he'd hold on to the ball maybe a little bit too long, and we'd have a couple more opportunities to make a sack, or at least put a lot of pressure on him. Penix doesn't get sacked a whole lot, but he had been sacked once at least one time, 5 of 7 conference games thus far up until Saturday, and we didn't come away with any sacks. And so I
thought we barely touched him.
Yeah. And I think that actually was maybe one of those unsung reasons why he still did have his way with us, and I think a lot of it was subdued because of the weather. But yeah, I mean, defense, like I said, they didn't break. They held on to the game as much as they could to allow the offense to have their opportunities. The offense, for the most part, at least in the first half, held up their own as well. There was, not to transition off defense, but I mean, there was that interesting stat about the first down carries in the second half.
Yeah.
We carried the ball 11 times on 15 first down plays in the second half, for a total of 4 yards. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about those third down conversions, you can literally pinpoint right there why we had so few third down conversions, because we had so many second and longs. We just could not get it going on first down with the run in the second half. And I think that played a big difference in us
Right.
moving away from the run game, which I know a lot of
Right.
fans are questioning, rightfully. I think Damian was playing a hell of a game, but you can't just look at individual plays. You have to look at the whole body of work. And so when our first down rushes aren't working and it's pouring rain and no quarterback was fairly accurate, there wasn't a lot of big throws because of the downpour. You had to try something else, and I know we tried some big throws. But they also didn't work. So, it is what it is. But that game really came down to the second half, and to be honest, it came down to that final drive.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we would have been happy with that. Be like, put the ball in our offense's hands. All you need is a field goal, and came close, but just it kind of felt like we were waiting for one explosive play that just never came. And if that explosive play comes, then we're 9-2 and eagerly anticipating where we fall in the college football rankings tomorrow night.
I think that is such a good point. Like, there were so many times in that game where it felt like if that one play just went the other way, and like, I know I brought it up before, but that holding penalty at the 2-yard line, we get pushed back to the 12. We end up settling for a field goal. And I think did that make it 20-22, or I forget what that made it. Maybe 10 to 17. Anyways, that penalty, if it doesn't happen, we get the ball in. And of course, the game can shift. It doesn't mean that, 7 points instead of 3 is going to make it so that we win this game. Certainly would have helped. And it just seems like if the ball would have bounced a different way on 5 or 6 different plays, Oregon State wins that game. I don't know if you can say the same thing for Washington. Like, there doesn't seem like a play where it just went terribly wrong for Washington and Oregon State really benefited from it. Like on that turnover, they got the ball right back, and I believe they scored a touchdown on that. So it just, it felt like Oregon State was very, very, very unlucky in that game.
Yeah. And then there's another holding penalty too that erased a big chunk run by DJ earlier in the game. That could have been, it was the difference between either having the ball at midfield or having the ball first and 10 on like the 25 is what it ended up being. I think one of DJ's more electric runs of the night. So, and that's football, there's going to be a lot of play, like 50-50 plays. And like Al Pacino says in Game of Any Given Sunday, it's a game of inches. And it really was on Saturday night. I think, the Washington's run defense really stepped up in the second half. I think, I'm never going to be upset with a play call that puts the ball in Dame's hands. But I also think that if we had just run the ball kind of rhetoric doesn't really tell the whole story and kind of misses the point here.
Well, I think what people are also not pinpointing is that Fenwick clearly wasn't himself. Like you mentioned, Terry, like you kind of saw something pregame that tipped you off, like something seems strange here.
There was a moment pregame where I questioned if Fenwick was 100%. It was very close to the start of the game, and he was kind of, by himself in the end zone, and then he walked over to a pylon, had his helmet off, like knelt down, and just took a while to like collect himself. And I was like, maybe this is just his routine, whatever. But like, he didn't look like the sort of, hyped Deshaun that we're used to seeing. And then in the box score, it's 3 carries, 0 yards. And there wasn't quite the same sharpness or ruthlessness any of the times that he touched the ball.
Yeah.
And
Like
there
his
could be a
first
number of
carry.
reasons for that.
Yeah, his first
Yeah,
carry.
he got blasted like right away.
But he made a cut. He made a cut, and it looked slightly like he slipped, but it wasn't really like he slipped from wet turf. And it was super awkward to see. And as soon as I watched Hayden get just totally blasted, it was like I don't think Fenwick's got it tonight. I don't know what it is, but something about it was similar explosiveness or lack thereof that he had towards the end of last season as well, when he just middle to end of last season when he was injured, and then when Damian essentially kind of took over as the number one back from that point forward. And at the moment was kind of like, oh, he doesn't seem like he's got it tonight. But looking back on it, I mean, that was a huge factor. To not have our 1-2 punch. Damian, don't get me wrong, he's a workhorse back. The man could carry a team if he needed to. But
he's not gonna. You can't give it to him 40 times.
Yeah, and not in a game where everyone's expecting the run because of the weather, and because no quarterback could really get it going.
Yeah.
So
it seemed like we were struggling a lot on the outside runs too. Like the only play that really felt like it was working with any sort of consistency was a run up the middle, like the most basic play. So I don't know what was going on with that, but it seemed like Damian just could not break loose outside at all.
There was another couple plays too that I don't necessarily want to harp on, but just since we're recalling things that possibly went wrong, which is what every Beaver fan is doing, driving to and from work, at the water cooler and everything this week. But so Henley Bloomfield got hurt in the second half.
And he's done for the season, according to
it looks like it.
Big Dave confirmed on Twitter.
I think Flavio is the one who comes in for him at that left guard spot. And I think we instantly ran like 3 straight plays to the left, and like none of them worked. And I'm not trying to put Flavio on blast and be like, that's the reason why. And I know it's big level football. It's next man up. You can't just be like, oh, we're not going to run to the left because our left guard got hurt or whatever. But it kind of seemed like you're playing with fire a little bit here. He got hurt on a play where he pulled out like pretty far. Damian got pretty far down. That was the drive that ended in a field goal that made it 22-20. Benny, I don't know if there's I think the holding penalty deep in Huskies territory was earlier, but it was just kind of like, we're going to try and treat this play like we would any other play despite personnel. And I think I'm nitpicking here, honestly, but it's just like, when your stalwart left guard goes out, I'm not instantly running behind the person replacing him. And that just kind of seemed like something that maybe there was a scripted drive and they had seen something and they wanted to stick to it. And it was like, oh, this will work. Fuck, Bloomfield's out now. So I don't know. But I noticed Bloomfield down for a while, took him a while to get off the field. And then like the next 2 to 3 plays were just no gains to an area of the field where Bloomfield normally lines up. And it's like, I would maybe not put that immediate pressure on the backup offensive lineman who's coming in cold right now in the fourth quarter.
In the cold.
In the literally and figuratively cold. Yeah. But anyway,
I don't know,
one
other little nugget that I'm not going to try to put this on anybody again as well, but I'm curious how you guys felt the game went when, like, Velling got 2 targets and he only had the 1 reception for 1 yard. And as somebody who can open up the field for us, for all factors of our offense, getting him involved is, I mean, we are humming when Velling is one of our top targets. For the play calling, for the decision making on throws, for him successfully getting open. And 2 targets, 1 incomplete pass on that final drive, and then 1 earlier in the game for 1 yard.
Final offensive play.
So curious what you guys think about why
I think that's probably maybe the biggest thing that Lindgren is kicking himself over yesterday and today, because so many of Velling's dangerous plays have been on, short to intermediate routes and like plays that don't take super long to develop. And I think on his one catch, Benny, you and I were standing next to each other. We talked about it. DJ had him dead to rights, wide open from like the snap.
Yeah.
And just rolled out, held onto the ball too long. And by the time he got the ball to Velling, he was already like, he had to make a Chris Carter sideline catch just to stay in bounds. And it was a gain of a yard. And I don't know if it would have been a touchdown, but he had space to run. So I don't know if it was just the rhythm was off, but I think everyone on our team, but Velling especially, it's just like, you don't need clear skies and warm temperatures for like that to work. It's a lot of just he runs, out routes and hitches and, finds those pockets of space and sits down, 4 yards down the field, 5 yards down the field. And just that big frame of his, even if he gets blasted right when he catches the ball, I'm shocked that we didn't try to work him into it more in the second half when Washington knew we were going to Dame on every first down. And we're really stopping us, because that seems like the most natural progression and doesn't put that much pressure on DJ to try and make those plays happen.
I think, though, that, and I only watched the game from the terrace. I haven't rewatched it on TV or anything, but it seems like what could have contributed to that is Washington. It felt like Washington was stacking the box and daring DJ to throw out to Silas or Gould specifically, or Irish. And
yeah,
they were playing a lot of man-to-man. And so I would think part of that would make Velling's normal lanes and routes a little bit more congested. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if that was the case, but it was they were certainly stacking the box to stop Dame. They knew that was coming. And I think I think I made a comment to you, Terry, like that Dame makes more out of nothing, more than I've seen a player do in a really long time. But there was a whole lot of nothing for Dame to work with,
right?
Because Washington had so many people that they just stack the box with.
Right.
One point to make on the Velling stuff is that in every game where he has had a reception longer than 25 yards, we've won. And a lot of it, of course, is a little bit of yak, right? Like just getting the ball, let his size and speed do the work. But I mean, he hasn't had less than 20 yards for a reception since the Utah game. He has only had a 20-yard reception or more in a loss, and that was against Arizona, and he had the 22 yards. He actually had a really good game. So I don't know if maybe it was Washington just being like, we're going to take Dame out of the game, and in the same breath, we're going to do our best to take Velling out of the game, and it just didn't work for us to try to figure out how to get anyone else involved. But yeah, I think that's one of those box score stat lines that you're going to look at in 10 years and be like, this team was moving. They were hot. The offense was explosive. And then all of a sudden, Jack Velling got one reception for 1 yard.
Yeah. That's surprising. I didn't know that stat until you said something, but you would think that, I mean, dude, DJ clearly the rain was affecting him. And so you want to play that dink and dunk game. You would think that Velling would be a huge part of that. Yeah, that's surprising.
Absolutely.
And especially against his hometown college.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That would have been nice. That would have been nice for him. But yeah, I think a lot of this, comes down to Washington being the best team we played all year, and just two great teams
credit
going
to them.
at it. And
there's a reason they're going to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good.
Yeah. I mean, that is a frustrating part. I think it's similar to the Arizona game where it wasn't really anybody's fault. I mean, there wasn't a position group or a player that you were just like if they would have just played better, it would have been a different outcome. Like, I thought that everyone played a fairly good game. Just like I said, like the ball didn't bounce our way a couple more times than what we sort of expect if it was 50-50.
Yeah.
And Washington played a really
on a
good
sunny
game.
day.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know
or
what?
play-
I'm
yeah.
crowning ourselves victors on the never happening rematch on a sunny day in Corvallis.
Right.
That we would win that game with ease. So congrats, we won.
It just, we didn't handle the slap as well as I think we all hoped. 3 turnovers total. That punt or that snap that sailed over punter Josh Green's head that resulted in a safety, which is
wasn't
also
not a turnover.
not why we lost the game, though.
Yes,
There's
good.
people on
Let's point this out.
Discourse who are like, well, you give up a safety, you lose by 2. That's the reason why you lose. Let's remember Washington eventually scored a touchdown that made it 22-10 and went for 2 and didn't get it. Had that been flipped, I think you would see Washington kicks an extra point instead of going for 2, because a 11-point lead is much more advantageous than a 10-point lead, and then the 12-point lead doesn't reward the same type of risk. So I think when you're up 22-10, analytics skews towards going for 2 in that situation more so than it would if you had just gone up 20-10. So we are likely the most generous reading of that is we would have been down 21-20 in the final drive as opposed to 22-20.
Yes.
Obviously, every game is a different version of the butterfly effect. So who knows what happens and what doesn't. And, that safety obviously really hurt us and took away some momentum because UW scored on the opening drive of the game. We matched it. And we stopped them. They stopped us. And it's like, all right, if you get a good punt out of Josh Green here, and then you're sending the defense back out on the field at 7-7, and it's just kind of like, who's gonna blink first or whatever. And that safety then made it so we were chasing the game for the rest of the time. So it was significant. I'm not saying it's not, but to just be like, oh, had we only just not had that one bad snap, then we'd be in overtime. Like that, it just football doesn't work that way. It's still not a great play, especially on a day where the Huskies had a lot of penalties too. So I'm not going to just bemoan the penalty thing like I do whenever we come. Even I do that more after wins when we win a game, and it's just like we had 5 more penalties than they did. Because it can't just be all positivity. We got to be fair on both sides of the coin.
To that point, though, I feel like there was one drive where Washington State had a holding and then a false start. I'm sorry, Washington had a holding.
Don't you dare refer to them as our besties, Benny.
Yeah. They had a false start, holding, false start.
Oh, we were lit at that moment.
Right. So it was like if 3 of those 8 penalties happened within like 3 or 4 different plays. So, yeah, I mean, you're right, though. Washington did have more penalty yards than Oregon State did, but it felt like Oregon State's penalties were spread out amongst drives that were drive killers. And especially that one happened at a really inopportune time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
but here's the other thing. Before I move on, I've seen a lot of people say, hey, it was because of this, or the Rome Odunze, he had pushed off on one of those. And like, yeah, like
there was when I saw the replay, I was like, he didn't push off. That was
right. I think it's just Beaver fans, like, it sucks. It sucks to lose, especially sucks to lose to that team in the way that we did. But it's hard for me to say this, but sometimes you do just have to tip your hat to the other team. Washington, their story coming into this game was they haven't played well, but they've always found a way to win at the end. And that's kind of what happened here.
Yeah. Well, it ensured that Washington will play for the Pac-12 championship in Las Vegas on December 1st. The result also formally eliminated Oregon State from participating in that game. It was still within the realm of possibility that we could make it if we had beaten Washington. So we can't play for the Pac-12 title anymore in this last season of the conference as we know it, which would have been the best piece of poetry and Shakespearean theater that we could have hoped for. And I will be mourning that loss for the next couple of days, but not any longer than that, because the season's not over yet.
Nope.
We can still fuck things up. We can still hand Oregon its second loss of the season.
Well, and
Second
Beavers are the biggest
consecutive.
disruptors in nature, so this is
Yes.
in our blood.
I'm not even going to fact check that. Yes. They are. A dam of beavers is the biggest disrupting crew in the entire animal kingdom. It's Hate Oregon Week. It's Civil War Week. If you don't want to call it Civil War Week, call it Hate Oregon Week. And this game feels so much more important, if that's even possible, than it normally does. We're 8-3. They are 10-1. If we beat them, do they still make a Pac-12 championship game?
Not if Arizona wins.
Yeah, if Arizona
has the tiebreaker with them.
Well, so they didn't play each other, so the tiebreaker scenario is common opponents with the best conference record.
Okay.
So yeah,
Arizona would have it then.
There's a possibility, yes, if Arizona wins out and we beat Oregon.
I have to imagine Arizona are significant favorites in the Territorial Cup against Arizona State.
Yeah, they have
rivalry game, so whatever. But you beat Oregon. Not only do you beat Oregon for the second year in a row, not only do you send them to the Big Ten with a nice kiss my ass card farewell attached to it, but you might knock them out. You knocked them out of the college football playoff. Probably.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any scenario
Yeah.
where even if they were to make it to the Pac-12 championship game and beat Washington, I don't know if I see the committee putting in a 2-loss Pac-12 champion in this year's field of 4. Maybe they would. I wouldn't say it's completely impossible, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So you can knock them out of the playoff. You can knock them out of the conference title game. Even this fucking... The biggest thing I'm bemoaning from this against Washington was people have been talking about the Washington-Oregon rematch for 6 weeks like it's scripture, like it's for sure going to happen. And it's pissed me off entirely. And we're a fucking 4th down completion away from getting a field goal attempt to keep our name in the ring for a chance to play in that game beyond those 2 mutineers heading to the Big Ten next year who won't meet each other in Indianapolis. But you can knock Oregon out of that game. You can effectively end Bo Nix's Heisman campaign. There's a lot to play for. And you can position yourself for bigger marquee games down the road as I want to sort of keep our feet in 2 different doors here and talk about this game while also sort of thinking about the future. We've got to move a little quickly through these next 2 segments, but beating Oregon this year with all of the realignment nonsense, whether that actually effectively means anything with the power brokers or the networks or college football casuals or anything, will mean a lot, as we are the team, one of 2 teams that has been left for dead in just to make way for our rival from 40 miles down the road to have their future secured. That doesn't include playing us or have a requirement to play us or anything like that. So
not yet.
This is so significant, pragmatically significant, and it's also emotionally significant. It's spiritually significant. I don't know that the game has ever truly mattered more, even when it decided who went to the Rose Bowl. And my reasoning for that is because there's money on the line in this game. There's bargaining chips on the line for OSU if you win this game for the second year in a row. There's things that you can take to power brokers about your place in the college football pecking order. That matters. Where we land in the end of season college football playoff rankings matters. I don't know when all this was happening in August, we're like, does it even matter if Oregon State wins the national championship this year? I don't know if that matters for conference alignment next season or the very next TV deal we get, but for the future of this program and for what we have to bring to the table to tell people we matter, we deserve to be in Power 5, like Dickert did after Wazoo stunned Wisconsin on the Palouse earlier this year, it fucking matters. Where we are matters. Being ranked higher than most of the SEC fucking matters. Being ranked higher than most of the dog shit Big Ten this year fucking matters. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox in this. I was just trying to introduce a very reasonable introductory segment to Oregon State's next opponent, like it's week 3 of the season. But I'm fired the fuck up right now because winning this game fucking matters for so many reasons beyond what it could mean for the postseason this year or whatever.
Yeah,
it's so goddamn important.
Well, and I had to add into what makes this game significant, of course, on top of what you're saying is we haven't won in Eugene in 16 seasons, I believe, is what the last time it's just December 1st, 2007. 0
for our last 7, 0 for our last 8 in there.
And like one, to put that into perspective, obviously there was the James Rogers run in overtime, which feels like an eternity ago.
And then Dorian Smith stuff on J Stu on 4th.
But also, not to make light of it, but it was so long ago that recent Oregon State University Hall of Fame inductee Alexis Cerna kicked a game-tying field goal in overtime, including the extra point after the James Rogers touchdown. So it's been a long time, and I think it would show that it might be time to start forgetting a little bit of history if you are a casual college football observer who just assumes that it's always been this way, that Oregon always beats up on Oregon State, because that's, one, historically inaccurate, and two, a much more of a recency bias view that we could break by getting a victory on Friday.
Yeah. I saw, I shared with you guys earlier today on Damian Martinez's Instagram story where he just had FTD or FT.
It was FT duck emoji ...
Yeah, it's right.
It was even subtle.
It's the team in the film room with Oregon on the screen.
Yes. Yeah. You gotta love that. Penny, that's what you live for, is players buying in.
That is why Damian Martinez is Benny's favorite Oregon State offensive player ever, for shit like that. More so than any amazing run he's had.
I love that for all the reasons that you guys just said, but also, like, I know the way I personally feel is like there was so much buildup and so much emotion that was going into that Washington game. We have been talking about it for a while, and it lived up to everything that we build it as. And Reeser had never been rocking as much, and it felt like there was a lot of air that was just let out of not only the building, but sort of the enthusiasm for the program almost. And I know it's only been 3 days, but like, I totally get it. We were in the position to do something really, really special and still are, but it feels like that was cut down at the knees with that loss to Washington. It was just a huge blow. I said on my way to Reeser, like, I've never been more excited for a game than what I was for that Washington game. And if I felt that from other Beaver fans, I don't know if Damian speaks for everyone in the locker room, but I guess just my natural expectation was that the players were going to feel that way too, especially with it being senior day. I mean, we saw Anthony Gould being really emotional. I mean, obviously that was emotion that was based on being here for, the last, I think it's 5 years that he's been with the program. But I think a lot of it had to do with that game too. So the fact that the players, at least Damian, has moved on and is focused on Oregon makes me really happy. And I second everything that you guys said about this game. I think there is recency bias, and I think it's important to call that out. I've mentioned several times on this podcast, like, I grew up as a Beaver fan. My dad went to Oregon State, and I can remember the years like before Phil Knight got really involved, and Oregon and Oregon State were on the same playing field. Like, Oregon didn't have millions and millions of dollars being pumped into it, and it was just another state university. And I don't know, this isn't anything new to Beaver fans, but Oregon bought themselves success, but they also bought themselves a fan base and a particular type of fan base. I think one of the things that I'm so proud of being an Oregon State Beaver supporter is the fact that it is about the community. I saw my Aunt Teresa, sort of sidebar for a second. I saw my Aunt Teresa, whose daughter, my cousin Ray, is in the Oregon State band. She didn't really like have any affiliation with the football team. She actually said, like, we're here for the band, but football is starting to grow on me. And we talked about like the cool thing here, whether you're here for the band or whether you're here for the football team, is the community of people from Corvallis, the community of people that went to Oregon State, the community of people that are faculty at Oregon State, or athletes at Oregon State, or coaches at Oregon State. Like, there is a community there, and we're bonded by one thing, and that is being a community around Oregon State. And I think that is such a complete stark contrast to what Oregon has bought with the money from Phil Knight. And again, this isn't anything new for Oregon State fans, but to have a team essentially buy its way out of being in that tit for tat partnership with you for 95% of the rivalry, and they're going out not only benefiting them, but leaving you for dead. And the fan bases have just become the total opposite of each other. Like, this game matters for all of those reasons, for all of the reasons that you guys said. And we called it anger before, like when we would play Oregon, right? We called anger, and it was like, it truly was. There was an anger there because of what I said, because
emphasize the past tense there, because anger doesn't come close to covering it anymore.
But I mean, because their fan base is so different, they're not like us. Like, they are not like us. It's a different fan base. It's much more of a professional sports fan base, what Oregon State has. And now that they've left us for dead, forget benefiting themselves. Like, I mean, they were out for number one. They've always been out for number one. They say that Oregon State would have done the same thing if we were in their position.
No, what you're doing is dumb, Oregon.
Well, and I mean, of course, a school that has funneled as much money as Oregon has into their athletic program, and look, like, I'm spitballing here, but I would venture to say like 70% of Oregon's fans don't have any affiliation with their school, and that's the way they want it. So of course they're going to go out and look out for number one. I don't think Oregon State does that. I really don't. And maybe that's just like a biased perspective, but I don't think we do.
You can tell the difference in the Oregon fan too. That like, there's we've all I know, Benny, I know you and I have, but like, we've talked to several Oregon fans who are like, fuck, like, I don't love this new reality. Like, I'm not mad that we're part of the haves and not the have-nots. But like, and Twitter is dumb. But like, there's so many. You can see all the Oregon fans who didn't go to school because they don't give a shit. They don't care that they play Purdue and not Wazoo or whatever, because like, they don't have any tie to that history and they don't give a shit.
And I've talked to other older Oregon fans who have expressed like, I hope Oregon State and Washington State win the lawsuit. I hope they get the money.
Yeah,
I honestly. Don't appreciate at all what's happening to them, and I wish that my school didn't have a hand in making this happen. So yeah, it's just this new age fan base crowd who found out about Oregon by going to a Nike store and seeing the merch and saying it looked cool, and then finding out that they played a fast offense style game and latched on, and then bit even too heavily into the rivalry to not understand the intricacies of the historical facts of this rivalry, and have really the associations of fans. And look, I know there's Oregon State fans who listen to us, who don't listen to us and just root for Oregon State, had no affiliation to Oregon State, and still root like crazy, still hate Oregon like crazy. And so I don't mean this in a way of saying that if you didn't go to the school, you have no right to root for them. but there is a different type of fan at Oregon, especially where they have no affiliation, and they're almost the loud minority, the most vocal loud minority of fan. And it gives the rest of them a bad look. Not to say that they had a good look to begin with, but it hurts it even.
No one has a good look in those jerseys.
No, not even.
Well,
in that
especially
color
when you're covered in duck shit.
I agree, and I think it's. I'm glad you guys both called that out. I think that it tends to be the older Duck fan, someone who was there in the 80s, the Duck fan in the early 90s, that truly does feel sympathy. And I'm not the one to say like, oh, don't give me your sympathy. I think they really feel bad and there's nothing that they can do. But the fact that Oregon ditched Oregon State, that's obviously going to change the dynamic of this rivalry. The fact that their fans, the vocal ones, and I know Twitter is a very small, it's a dumpster fire, but it's also like a small subsection.
Those are real people.
They are real people, and they're dancing on the perceived grave.
Dicks.
They're real dicks. They're dancing on the perceived grave of Oregon State, and I think like what was anger is now this like. I don't even know if there's a word for it.
It's the next level of seething hatred.
Yeah, I think that fans truly feel that way, and for no other reason. That's why this game is big. It means so much, and it would be so heartbreaking to lose, so demoralizing to lose, and it would feel so fucking good to win, even if it was just for a day, to beat them with what's going on extracurricularly right now. Like that would mean everything in the world. And then like, dude, if we can knock them out, it does. To me, the Pac-12 championship doesn't matter. It's the college football playoff. Like they've gotten close. They've not gotten it. And for us to make sure that they don't get it, I don't think they have a chance in the world in the Big Ten. I really don't. I think that's Ohio State and Michigan's conference, and that's not going to change. This is Oregon's like last chance. I think. I truly think that. And if we can close the steel door on that happening, that would be Shakespearean.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever wanted a sports thing more than this one.
Agreed.
And I think we should table the conversation on future civil wars for next week, because we're already well over an hour here and we do have other sports to get to. And I think there's so much that needs to play out between just everything on if we do sign a contract to continue, or what happens to allow the Civil War to continue past this year. I know the fan base is a little split on where we're feeling, but I think we also, something that we're not split on is the hype train going into this game.
Yeah.
And getting one last victory at Autzen, who is a Beaver alum, motherfuckers.
One last thing. I know we need to move on, but Oregon State has been favored in every single game they've played this year. They're 13.5-point dogs.
Yep.
So you want to talk about just getting absolutely zero respect? Like this game has all of it.
And on just to tail on that. So we're 13.5-point dogs as of right now. And Terry, you mentioned earlier about Arizona should be able to handle Arizona State, but just to put it into perspective, Arizona State is an 11-point dog right now. So their odds of winning against Arizona are better than ours against Oregon. And not to say that I feel like those are fair odds, but if we feel confident that Oregon State should be able to just shake all of the doubters and be able to still win, even with this kind of line, that you have to apply that same logic to Arizona State. So I want to set the expectation that even by winning, let's just celebrate the victory, like as a good old fashioned rivalry victory, one that we have desperately sought for nearly 2 decades on the road now. Yeah. And not worry about things outside of our control, like knocking them out of the Pac-12 championship, because if we can do it, so could Arizona State. So nothing's a given.
Of course.
True.
But
there's not a 2-loss team going into the college football playoffs. And that's what matters most to them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Which I don't get why they care so
be
much. It's only like they've done it once.
That can be fun to play the spoiler. Should we revisit our preseason predictions for this game?
Yes.
Who, JP? I'm going to put the power in your hands. Whose prediction would you like to hear first?
Yours. I feel like yours
Mine?
is always the. And here's what I said after you covered mine and Benny's. So you lead.
All right. I don't have my notes from this. I have my score. I do believe I said in the craziest game ever, the craziest football game in the history of gridiron combat, Oregon State wins 43-40.
Wow.
Which sounds like a heart attack for all three of us, and probably way more than just that. I don't know if multiple thousands on either side of the thin red line of this fan base would survive a 43-40 Oregon State win. But as long as I get to live through the final whistle, I don't care, baby. Just kidding, I do care. But yes, I have a 43-40 victory. I think overtime was a part of that. I don't really give a shit, but that would be pretty, this another layer of poetry with, JP, you mentioned Alexis Cerna being a huge factor in the 3 Civil War wins he had in his Beaver career against the University of Oregon.
That's why he's on the wall.
3 wins against University of Oregon. Yeah, I have a 43-40 win. Bees win by a field goal. All right, JP, you or Benny next?
We'll save Benny for last. I'll go next.
Okay. JP, your preseason prediction for Oregon State at Oregon, Week 13, final Civil War in the Pac-12 as we know it, Black Friday, the noisiest scoreline possible. Oregon State wins 69-0.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's going to be closer to yours than mine. I'm just throwing that out there. A glorious day for the Beavs. 10 touchdowns. Atticus Sappington misses the last one on purpose to preserve the nicest scoreline in the history of college sports. Are you going to stick to that prediction, my friend?
Yeah, but I'm going to say he doesn't miss it on purpose. He just takes a knee.
Okay.
That would be, oh man, that would be awesome.
He just grabs the snap and then just takes a knee and then flips off Dan Lanning, aka Land Danning.
Yeah, Land Danning.
God.
Remember the one time you called him Land Danning and that an Oregon fan got so mad about it?
Where was that?
I was like I can't remember, but it was very, very early. I just remember you think it was very funny, and it was. Also very dumb. And it's funny. It got one Duck fan so fired up about it. Wait, I thought you guys didn't care about us. I thought we weren't even real rivals, and you're just mad that we moved 2 letters around. What?
But we did it. That's his real name.
Land Danning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Old Miss.
Sorry that Oregon fans can't read.
Oh my gosh. All right, Benny.
I'm actually not sorry.
We should all know.
It's the full
WeHage. 42-14.
Yeah.
Oregon State victory.
I'll stick with that.
Hey, what's been our closest full WeHage thus far this season?
This season?
Yeah.
Was it the Stanford game, maybe? Even though we far outshot our end of it.
Nope. It was San Jose State.
42, yeah, 42-17.
You were really close.
Yeah,
that first one, yeah.
Man.
We should put like $1. We should put like $10 in every game to see if there's a full WeHage. Be like a scoregami. If you don't follow NFL Scoregami on Twitter,
NFL Scoregami is a great account. That's a very fun follow.
Yeah, You have to follow them. We should create the full WeHage account on Twitter.
Full WeHageagami.
Yeah.
The funny part about that, that was in our first prediction episode, and I was so stoned. I was thinking in my head, I was like, is this even a possible score?
I love how when we reveal our longest running recurring segments have a foundation of Ben being high. Wow, you guys reference that every week. Like, oh yeah, the first time we did it, I was so stoned.
I don't even know why I was doing it.
Like, oh, it's a blowout win. That is a plausible score.
Maybe
I'm going to go with that.
For the off season on.
And then you're probably
Cream.
also like, did I already use this score yet? I don't think so. I thought too hard about it. I probably didn't say it out loud.
You always said this is gonna be, we'll win. It won't be a blowout though. It'll be a closer one, a close win by a score of like 42-14.
Yeah.
I'm checking to see if there's ever been a game.
For sure. I think a cool offseason project for me will be to do like a written history of all the full WeHages in Oregon State history on Cream.
Yeah, I like that. I love that idea. And what I also was saying is that when we have our full WeHageagami Twitter account, after like the first score of every Oregon State game, we'll say the score is 7-0. The game has a 69% chance of ending in a scoreagami.
Yes. It will
always the win probability index will always be 69% until an opponent scores more than 14 or the Beavs score more than 42, and then it'll go to 0 or 100. There are 3 total percentage points.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little devilish that may happen. I feel what's the word?
I
Sinister.
feel good. I feel fucking confident. And man, Smith has this team playing good after losses. Like, we don't really fuck up after losses very often in this last 2 years of this program. Like, we're not gonna get walked over, despite what Oregon fans think and what the national media might think and what Vegas might think. Like, this is going to be a close game, and we're coming to fucking play, assholes.
Let me ask you this question. Oregon State, this is the headline on Sunday morning. Oregon State beats Oregon because of X. What's X?
Oh, well, it depends what the outcome is, in the sense of if your prediction's right or mine is right. And it's either, if yours is right, it is because of the full WeHage trademark. They have to include that because we've trademarked it. or it's because they score the noisest amount in college football history.
I just want Dashel to have to write noise on his computer.
The autocorrect would fuck with Dashel so bad.
Voice.
Every time. Yeah, voice. Nice.
Voice.
No.
Choice. Boys. State.
Bocce ball. It just goes way off the rails.
Benny, mine is because of greatest quarterbacking performance in Civil War history by not Bo Nix, aka Bo Picks, but because of DJ Uyunglele.
Okay. Didn't I say something that he was going to have the game? That's how we were going to get to 69. It was going to be like, I thought he was going to throw 5 touchdowns.
10 touchdown passes, sure.
No, we wouldn't have throw.
Mine,
maybe, yeah.
Mine is
if Atticus took a knee.
Oregon State gets pressure on Bo Nix and sacks him 5 times. I
It
think
turns
he's
him into
only
Bo
been
Picks.
sacked. He's only been sacked like, it's certainly single digits. It's like 3 or 4 times this year.
Remember when Joey Harrington threw 5 interceptions against Oregon State?
I
'Cause he
think I
did.
remember the game.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah.
Another Oregon quarterback who didn't win the Heisman but had a fucking skyscraper-sized poster in Times Square.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here's a full circle. Joey Harrington, Central Catholic grad. You know who else is a Central Catholic grad?
Oh,
Catan Oladapo.
Oh,
Yep.
Catan Oladapo
A
is
lot of
gonna
good football
get
players.
5 picks in the Civil War.
All right, so here you have it, Beaver fans. You're totally unbiased, real boots on the ground reporting.
Pixo.
Catan Oladapo will have 5 interceptions, and DJ Uyunglele will throw 10 touchdowns as Atticus Sappington then takes a knee on a 69-0 extra point in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This podcast has
plausible.
always been rooted in reason.
Yeah. Well, I stand by my prediction. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I stand by mine too. And
I'm a man of my word, Terry. Do you even know what weight that carries in today's day and age?
I do.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Good.
I wouldn't do the show with you if you weren't a man of your word.
Debatable. That's for Benny's bonus belligerence. We can argue
Oh.
We could argue about
if you would do the show if I was not a man of my word.
if you're
Subscribe
an
to our
asshole, I'd
Patreon.
probably stop doing it. But I don't see that happening, even no matter how hard you try.
I'm not trying.
I know you're not trying. No matter how hard you would try in a hypothetical scenario,
All right, thank you.
when you're a worse person than you actually are. One of my best friends, Benny, also being one of my best friends. I love you both. I also love Oregon State soccer.
I love that you put
What
how
a segue
it is.
That segue was as sweet of a turn as Andrew Andrew DeGain's first goal of the season, which put the fucking hammer down on a 3-0 victory against the Portland Pilots at Merlo Field in Portland, Oregon on Sunday night as the Beavs win 3-0 against the number 11th ranked nationally Portland Pilots. The win ends a 25-game unbeaten streak for the Portland Pilots at Merlo Field, which is genuinely known as one of the best college soccer atmospheres in the country, one of the best college soccer fields in the country, one of the best home field advantages in the country. None of that mattered. Joining Andrew in the scorer's circle was Logan Farrington, who's been just Mr. Dependable, finding the back of the net all day, every day. He scored the first 2 for Oregon State with great assists by Fran Cortijo, Turner Humphrey on the first one, just in the 9th minute of the first half, and then also with an assist by the birthday boy himself, Dante Williams, and Per Belmonte. Greg Dolby's team dismantles the Pilots 3-0, and we're going to Dallas, baby, for a shot at qualifying for the NCAA quarterfinals. We play one of the best teams in the country, the SMU Mustangs, another school destined to be part of the ACC later gang. So we don't give a shit. This is Eric Dickerson is not walking through that door. Mustang fans. Pony Express is not walking through that door. You know who is? Logan Farrington, Dante Williams, Greg Dolby, and the Babies, baby. Just kidding, we're not flying to Dallas. But on Saturday, the Beavs will play SMU in the Sweet 16. How sweet it is. JP, we were there in person.
We were there. And hey, I want to close the loop on Benny's relational statements earlier. So Joey 5 picks went to the same high school as you and Catan Oladapo. And did you know that Catan Oladapo's brother is the goalkeeper for the Portland Pilots? Cash.
What?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
And wasn't his game, obviously. I mean, I just think
None of those
it was
were
more
his
so
fault, though.
I think it's more so our game.
Absolute bangers.
He came off 2 clean sheets, actually 3 of 4, other than giving up a goal against LMU. But LMU also upset UCLA and knocked them out of the NCAA tournament. So clearly they've got a pretty decent squad. But yeah,
Do they even play soccer in the Big Ten?
I honestly have no idea. Like I thought about that before. I don't even know.
South of the Mason-Dixon line, man.
We're
Yo.
not south of the Mason-Dixon.
Yeah, but that's why we're special, just like we
Yeah.
are in baseball.
That's right. That is true. That's true.
I was going to say, nice transition. You put in the notes how sweet it is. Sweet 16. We were there. It was awesome. We teased it earlier on. that the mini bebe got his fair share of sweets. It was a sugar overload. I would say shout out to the Merlot Field concession stands, but man, they were selling these little bags of cotton candy that was like maybe the size of my face.
Very dense, packed bags of cotton candy that may or may not have had cocaine in them.
200% of your daily requirements of sugar, which I realized.
I'm surprised there's only 200.
I realized it halfway through the kid being through it, and I was like, "Oh, you're done. I can't believe that you just ate this much of this. This was, yeah. Hey, he slept well.
He gave me a few bites, and the first one I was like, "Well, I just got a cavity." It was not fun. A little tasty, but also painful.
Yeah. And I do have to shout out, dude, the Pilots fans, the student section. They were lit.
They were lit. They didn't. It was 3-0 for like the last 15, 20 minutes of the game, and they did not stop.
No,
that was
and
what
as
you
we
like
were
to see.
leaving, we're in the car, we're just driving down the street past the field again, and those guys or gals, the entire student section that was like banging on their drums and blowing their horns, they waving their flags. They all started just like marching down the street after the game. And they were still making noise. None of them were looking distraught. None of them looked, like angry. They I think were just having fun, being appreciative of a good season. And so, yeah, I thought it was a great atmosphere. I'd never seen a game there, but man, they set a bar pretty well.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Great atmosphere that they created, and yeah, great. There's a lot of Beavs fans though, which was great to see. And just a great NCAA tournament moment for Logan Farrington. I don't think we've talked about Logan enough on this podcast or just in Oregon State circles. Dude was Pac-12 Player of the Year, and just I know this is Greg Dalby's first year, and Terry Boss also had a lot to do with setting the culture of this program. But this is the third consecutive season that a Beav has been Pac-12 Player of the Year.
And they'll be the final
in
one.
2021, and Joran Gerbet in 2022, and this year it being Logan Farrington. And I didn't even want this to come into be another realignment thing, but this realignment nonsense touches everything. And they said this was about all student athletes and the goodwill of all student athletes. They honestly don't give a fuck about any Olympic sports or anything outside of football, really. They might be able to pretend a little bit better for men's basketball, but these suits don't care about these students. And there's been a stranglehold on Pac-12 excellence on the soccer field from this men's soccer program for Oregon State. And I know that the makeup of the Pac-12 for soccer is a bit different. So I think adjusting
you have the affiliate program with San Diego
State, and a lot of regional powers and just good programs. I mean, just beating Seattle U last week and UP last night. You don't need to necessarily rely on the conference affiliation. Maybe I shouldn't say that as an absolute, but shouts to Logan Farrington for the season that he's had. Shouts to Coach Greg Dalby for everything, and just the lots of guys on first team, second team, honorable mention. Ellis Speichner has been a great player for this team for a while. Luis Castillo has been a great player for this team for a while. Javier Ames has been a great player for this team for a while. We mentioned Dante Williams.
Our dude, birthday boy, Dante Williams. Happy belated, Dante.
And I haven't been able to watch this team in person a ton. It's hard to, get to Corvallis with have these things overlap with these football games we've gone to over the last few years. But when you watch a full game and when you watch this Dante in person, the way he affects everything, the dude
he's everywhere. Yeah.
And when they had Dante and Logan at the top, I think it was a bit of a 4-for-2. I can never. I watched a lot of soccer, but I have to be honest. I can always tell this shape that they're in unless the coach tells me. So we need to have Coach Dalby on the pod. I know he's busy, but we'll have him on at some point in the coming months for sure.
After they celebrate their championship.
hell yeah. But like Dante's just all over the place. He's making shit uncomfortable for the back line. He's making shit uncomfortable for the defensive mids.
He's
He's
so
popping
quick,
up around the ball at all times. He's so quick. He's such a fluid passer. This game is like get a feel for his movement and stuff in person. Like,
and you see why it works so well with Logan. I mean, Logan's just like a Logan makes his own space. And when he gets the ball, he's kind of like a bulldozer. Like he uses his size to his advantage. He's so
strong.
He's so
bully.
strong.
Logan's a bully.
He's an absolute bully out there. And seeing it live, I was not able to get out to see them down at Lorenz this season. And part of that's on me. Blame most of it on my newborn child.
You have 3 children. Well, you did choose to have 3 children, so that is on you. But
yeah, I also chose that I was done having children. So see, I make grown-up choices.
You do. Okay,
yeah. But watching them both be out there and not just like, the zoomed in camera work or like the errant pan from Pac-12 network, you really see the fluidity between those guys. And most of the front line just seems like they are completely on the same page at all times. Just, I don't know. I mean, it was expert work, and it wasn't like expert work that they eked out a win 1-0. I mean, they dominated, and I think that unless you watched it, you probably wouldn't take that away. I know 3-0 is obviously still a heavily favored score for the winning team, but it was, and we talked about this.
It was methodical.
Yeah, because it wasn't like we were dominating possession.
No,
the ball, to be honest, was most of the time it was on our defensive side of the field. I mean, like Portland had a lot of time to set things up, run some plays, and like at first it was there's a big discrepancy on shots on goal even. But then they started attacking because we were kind of sitting back, and maybe that's just what the whole game plan was for this. Because UP's had our number for a while, and it always likes to play spoiler against really any bigger schools, at least attendance wise. But when we started moving downfield, you could see that everyone was ready. Everybody was in their role, in their zone, is operating like absolute surgeons to get through the defense. And every strike we had on goal was like, I mean, if you blinked, even the fastest blink, you missed from strike to potential net. It was insane out there.
Yeah. And I know SMU's a great team, but they're gonna give those Mustangs all they can handle.
Well, we're 1-0 against SMU all time.
Oh, there we go.
We haven't played them in 5 years, but
I didn't obviously watch the game, so I don't have a lot of perspective to add there. But just a thought that I had the other day. I wonder if in sports like men's and women's soccer and the Olympic sports, and maybe throw women's basketball in there, maybe not women's basketball, but the idea of where everyone says like, oh, it's going to suck so much for the players in those sports for realignment. I don't know if people actually think about what that's going to do to recruiting. I could see Oregon State, because of that, becoming a power in a sport like soccer or in gymnastics or in I'll throw women's basketball in there because they're definitely not getting any chartered flights.
Yep.
Nope.
So maybe this is the start of sort of normalcy to getting deep turn.
Well, it's the start. It's the start of separation of football from the rest of college athletics. True. Because I totally agree, and have spoken with athletes who are not football players, and they have expressed the same thing. Yeah, like we don't get the cushy flights, we don't get the great accommodations, and regionality is important to us. Like being able to play nearby and be able to have our family friends go to the games. That's why I play. I'm here for an education, but I play because I love it. And part of the reason why I love it is because I know it brings me joy and the people that care about joy. And I'm not trying to take the joy out of it for me. So I've thought the same thing. And I'm very more so I've expressed it as it's going to screw over these schools that are trying to make these national or join these national conferences because they're going to lose those recruits that they could have gotten in those sports. That they're like, nah, never mind.
Yeah.
The upside isn't there for me, so why am I going to do this? But
Yeah.
I never really expressed or fully thought about the trickle down. Then you just said it, but yeah, I mean, that does feel very real and a very likely outcome of all of this reshuffling.
100%.
Yeah.
That game, Saturday, November 25th, 5 p.m. Pacific time. I know. But support men's soccer, support the Beavs. If they win, they will play the winner of the North Carolina Hofstra match in the NCAA quarterfinals, which I believe are in Louisville this year. That's the College Cup. So if you win, you essentially get to the Omaha of college soccer, which I know changes cities every year. But you're in that final stretch. And shout out to Jesus, listener Jesus, and his brothers.
Yeah,
who hit us up, let us know he was at the game. Jesus, been so great having you in the Discord and as a listener of the show, and also just your passion for Oregon State soccer is dope. And
yes.
I'm wanted to steal that autograph, that ball with all those autographs that you had. Hope you're able to add a few signatures to it after we parted ways last night. But we got to meet Jesus in person. We got to meet so many people at the football game on Saturday, and then we got to meet Jesus on Sunday.
Yeah, that was cool. Thanks for meeting up. Thanks for letting us know you were in attendance. I don't know why we would have assumed otherwise. It's an Oregon State men's soccer game in the state of Oregon. We should have known you'd be there. But appreciate your passion, man. I mean, it's definitely beyond admirable, and like this team does deserve to have a super fan like that and more. I mean, I really do hope that this kind of success continues to parlay year over year. I know continuity has been like a tough thing for this program despite the success, but I think if we can just stick in the driver's seat with the coaching regime, the players, the transfers, and the caliber of the seasons that we're having, then we'll continue to see people maybe not the same level as Jesus, but the more in that same vein. And I think that's a great thing for this program and for our school. And Jesus is setting that example.
100%. To the hard one. Good news and bad news. The bad news, Oregon State loses to Nebraska 84-63 at the Sanford Pentagon in beautiful Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was going to go to this game, but I came to Corvallis for the football game instead, and I am glad that I did. The drive to Sioux Falls is longer than the flight to Portland. So had I gone to the game, I would have had a longer drive than
you probably had media credentials sitting there waiting for you.
No, shout out to I won't share your name on the pod. You probably don't care, but the guys at Sanford, the Pentagon in Sioux Falls, who did give me media credentials when I had reached out a few weeks ago.
Right away,
I let them know that within seconds they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you."
Yeah, wow, thanks for the
and
coverage.
I appreciate it. And I would have loved to have talked with Coach Tinkle and with Jordan Pope, who had a great game. Just catch up with those guys while they're in the Midwest. Good little pit stop for them on their way to New York for the NIT early season tip-off, preseason tip-off, but it's not preseason, whatever. NIT tip-off. They play Baylor, who won the national championship the year that we went to the Elite Eight. So I think if we win this game, we're retroactively awarded a national championship. That's on Wednesday, and we will play either Pitt or Florida on Friday. All of those games can be seen on ESPN2. Never heard of it. Imagine that's some kind of sports programming channel. Yeah, ESPN2, Wednesday, November 22nd, 4 p.m. Pacific time. The good news, though, is that Oregon State women's basketball absolutely blasted UC Davis 86-48 on Friday night at a game that Benny and I really dropped the ball at not getting to. We were in the arena. We were in Gill for a bit during the game.
We just didn't get credentials.
We didn't ask for credentials, no, which was oversight on all of our parts. And
Me?
we
I wasn't
showed
there.
up literally a minute on both of our parts. And we showed up literally a minute after ticket sales had stopped for the night. And I think the great quote with Benny, we were standing in front of Gil. They were already up by like 45 points. We knew the women's basketball team didn't need us on this particular evening. Benny was like,
Or ever.
we could sneak in. And I was like, we're adults. And
Benny, you were
and Benny said, not in
Channeling-
Corvallis, we're not.
Yeah, I love this. You were channeling 19-year-old Benny of like, no, there's a way. And I'll
There's
find
the
it.
way. We might get held there for the police to come and get us, but there is a way to get in.
But you're so much older. Think about all the experience you have now of being able to talk your way out of something like that compared to when
Or
you
I
were
would just
18,
leave.
19 years old. Yeah.
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 Just
Stay
realize-
here. Wait for the police.
Had we
No.
had we successfully done that, we would have gotten to see Reagan Beers' third double-double in as many games. We would have
Let's
been
go.
able to see Tamia Gardner's first career double-double as a member of Oregon State women's basketball. Kennedy Schuler had her first double-digit scoring outing for the Beavs with 11 points. Another freshman who's looking phenomenal.
Yep.
And just, yeah, we took the lead, I think, less than 2 minutes into the game and then just had it wire to wire. So 86-48, your Oregon State women's basketball team is 3-0 and finally got that sort of comfortable blowout high scoring win that we were craving. They will host University of Maryland, Baltimore County in Corvallis on Wednesday, November 22nd. That's tomorrow or today at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Get out to Gil. And then they have a little bit of time off. They have a full week off, actually.
A full Wehage?
A full Wehage off.
A
Next
full Wehage off.
Wednesday, November 29th against Weber State at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So
Do we know
students-
anyone cool who
get out
went to
there.
Weber State? No.
No.
Damian Lillard.
I said cool.
Who?
I still think Damian Lillard's cool.
Really? Okay.
That's for a Benny's bonus belligerence episode.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm sure his ex-wife thinks differently.
Amber.
No, I wanted to say.
I want to look up.
Well-
You talk while I look up Weber State notable alumni.
Okay, yeah, okay. Look, this is the part of the podcast where we look things up. But while you're doing that, I would say that this was a great team victory, where a lot of people got in the game. It was, like, was there any player who didn't get time that was suited up? I can't imagine so. I think there was like at least 12 players who got minutes. And I think that kind of experience is huge for this team that is, I mean, really like on the young side. And I feel like we say that every season, like, well, this team's extremely young. They've got a lot of youth, but they still do. And they have a lot of contributors that are also still like underclassmen. And I think that Kennedy Schuler is going to be a huge part of this season. I can't wait to see what Tamia does with more than like a handful of games under her belt as she got last year when she was finally able to get on the court. And when everyone's out there and they can gel and they can get experience in games like this, where last season there was a little bit of like a, oh no, they aren't taking it to opponents like they should. And there was maybe a bit of panic from the coaches to figure out how to right the ship. Reagan didn't get a ton of time. You know, Talia had a huge emphasis on her, and she was clearly not healthy. But if everyone can stay healthy and everyone gets some experience, I love this squad. I think that there is so much potential, and they're getting so overlooked because you've got leadership, you've got size, you've got dominant players, you've got skill, you've got shooting. There isn't a facet of this team that is behind the curve. It's all going to come down to experience, though, making sure that they get used to playing together, get the rotation right. And if somebody needs to step up due to injury or due to just game circumstances, that they have something to pull from that they've experienced already. And this is one of those games that they didn't get last year. They didn't feed everybody in to get minutes. They did it for this one. So, yeah, this is
commanding win.
I'm already feeling very good about this season.
They could be the complete package.
Yeah.
Especially if they stay healthy. J.W. Marriott attended Weber State.
Oh, I
Don't know
used to
them.
work for Marriott. I used to smoke pot with J-Dub.
I smoked pot with J.W. Marriott and Jimmy Madison and Harrison Berg and UC Davis.
Out of a Clayton Clay
no.
dome.
It's actually it was Unc Davis, but the N got dropped over time.
That signals the end of the episode. We need to be done. Yeah, another week coming on, another season at Reister coming and gone. But thank you, Beaver fam, for making it the most special, most amazing.
Yeah, and everyone for the
atmosphere
meetup
in
at
football.
halftime. Come on, we got to really give them
Yes.
the love.
Absolutely.
And Scott,
Scott's Beaver Dam.
well,
Linda,
Scott coordinated all
Keith,
that. Everyone's showing up.
Lai, Will Lader's friend, who is an Oregon State cheerleader, whose name I'm forgetting, Jordan, I think your name was. I'm sorry. We got to hang out with Ashton, who has been on the pod before.
Yeah, I
Ashton.
missed her, but I was
You
right
missed
there. I think.
Ashton.
Yeah. Sorry, Ashton. Next time you
Timbo.
come all the way out to the West Coast.
Miles from New Orleans. There's so many people.
Amy.
Yes, Amy.
Yeah. Amy,
Amy
come
the
on
goat.
the pod.
Yeah, that's the next one. Why hasn't Amy Schwartz been on this podcast in 117 episodes? Because we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah. We are idiots.
You knew that. We are proud idiots.
Sean
We'll
Sheffield
get
knows
Amy
it.
on this podcast. Idiots enjoying coldies, enjoying friends, enjoying beeves, enjoying stuff, being dudes. This has been the Belligerent Beavs Podcast, the 117th episode of the Belligerent Beavs Podcast, to be exact. We wish there had been a better result on the field at Reister on Saturday, but still, we are so proud to be Beavs nonetheless. We're so proud to know so many great people in this community. And we're so goddamn proud and tickled silly that people listen to this podcast while JP somehow summons the balloons and the confetti magically in his Zoom avatar right now. Betty still hasn't done it, but it's not going to stop him from trying.
This is me at Reister.
It's something with peace signs and stuff. And this is not the part of the podcast when we look things up. This is the part of the podcast where JP and Benny try to make it as difficult as possible for me to close out the episode. But I am undeterred. I am undistractable through 117 episodes of podcasting at this point. This has been the Belligerent Beavs Podcast. My name has been and always will be Terry Horseman, a.k.a. Terrace Horseman of the Terrace Gang. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Terry Horseman.
X gonna give it to you.
And at Terrence Horstman on Instagram.com. Be on the lookout for Bridgerton season 3 or season 4. I can't remember which. Dropping on Christmas Day. Boxing Day is the day that British people give a shit about. And yeah, my beloved co-host, as always, in Portland, fresh off of hosting me and a bunch of other Neanderthals, JP Bertram. He's at the Trill J on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's at the _Trill_J, because he's too Trill to be real. And at JP Bertram on IG. And of course, back in Tacoma, wearing some John Lennon hippie shades. Oh my God, that's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. Benjamin Lawrence Sebastian Weehage, a.k.a. Benny Bedlam, a.k.a. Benny Boldgame, a.k.a. Benny Blastoff, a.k.a. Benny Perner, a.k.a. Benny with the good quaff, because his quaff is fucking luxurious, folks. He is at Benny L1986 on all social media channels. And follow us, for gosh sakes. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Belligerent Beavs. We're on Instagram, at Belligerent Beavs. We are the Belligerent Beavs on Facebook, the Belligerent Beavs Blue Sky, the Belligerent Beavs on TikTok, the Belligerent Beavs on YouTube, the Belligerent Beavs on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, if that still exists, and anywhere else you can get your podcast. Now would be a great time to go wherever you get those podcasts and give us a 5-star review and share the show with a friend. It really helps us grow the show a lot. We have really appreciated your support this season and look forward to bringing you much more great episodes in the months, years, decades, and centuries. And thank you so much for tuning into this. And remember, no matter how much rain Mother Nature dumps on you during a really disappointing game at Reeser, or if you're playing the most annoying, insufferable asshole fan base ever and you're at Autzen next week, be undeterred. Don't give a shit. And remember that no matter what, don't pee in their stadium unless it's in the proper receptacle with proper plumbing attached to it. Also remember that you can't spell chop 'em without hope. So chop 'em.
Drop them.
Chop 'em.
Fuck Oregon.
Beat the fucking Ducks.
Tell Landanning to have a great Thanksgiving, because the Belligerent Beavs is chop 'em.